All right, it's 6 o'clock on the dot. I'm gonna start on time. I am enjoying this little warm up that we're having. Hope you guys are. Hope you guys did okay through the polar vortex that we had. But anyhow, like I said, I'm gonna start right now. Turn this down. Thank you again for either joining in or replaying this video. I did get a lot of good feedback from the last video that I did last week. And this is sort of like an appendix or an addendum, if you will, to what I talked about last week. This week, I'm going to talk about one of the specific relationships that I had. First, let me just address the elephant in the room. And that is just that some people knew that I was engaged and I got engaged in April last year, but that's no more. And as I said, I'm not saying names, but you will hear about the situations that I've been through, and you'll understand why, that's not the case. So I just want to start with this quick. I found a meme and it says, or I didn't find it, someone gave it to me and I appreciate that. Thank you for the person who sent this to me. It says, narcissists don't want to give us the actual rules to succeed with them. They constantly change the rules, so we fail and are always to blame. And that's exactly what it is. No matter what lesson you think you've learned about how to deal with the narcissist, if you apply that lesson later on and it does not coincide with the way that they want you to act, they will change the rules on you. No matter how much you think you're adapting, they're going to hit you with the switch up. And it's always like that. I compared it to a hamster running on a spinning wheel. It's always spinning. You're never going to satisfy the narcissist, no matter how much you try. And then I also wanted to read this short article I found. It's not long. It's short, but it's by Lisa J. Haskins, who has a master's in education, and she's also certified by the National Board for Professional Teaching. And she says that one of the main red flags in a narcissistic relationship is when they move super fast at the beginning of the relationship. I mean, lightning fast. And this is what she says. Too soon and too fast is one of the glaring red flags that indicate a tangling with a narcissistic abuser. It is called love bombing. And when we look back, we are astounded by the signals that were missed, dismissed, and explained away, which is what I did. I dismissed my red flags and listened to him and his explanations and took those as truth. If it is a rush, a whirlwind, and turns into an overnight romance that sweeps you off your feet, that is a clear signal you need to bring clarity and insight into all your interactions. They move fast. He or she needs to be with us all the time. True. They want to be in constant contact. True. They lavish us with gifts, and you'll hear about that later. Compliments, poetry, special music playlists, constant texting and FaceTime, incessant texting and FaceTime, and appear to be the soulmate that we have been wishing and searching for. Their subtle jealousy seems flattering at first. They may promise an engagement or promise to marry you within 6 months. Yes, that's what happened. And we know now that that's a big red flag. Now, does this involve physical intimacy? Maybe, maybe not. It isn't the intimacy per se, but the mirroring and reflecting back to the victim that guides the actions of the narcissistic abuser. This could include candlelit dinners without sex. And what are the deeply held desires and needs of the victim? The narcissistic abuser has an uncanny way of reading these needs and responds perfectly. They study you. When you're on Facebook, they study you. They're listening and picking up on your signals, and they know exactly how to grab you because they know what you're looking for. Consider at the onset of the relationship, how is the man or woman you are on your first date with treating the waitstaff? Is he or she listening to you when you're speaking? Do you feel comfortable stating your opinions and needs? Is he or she the dazzling, charming life of the party, and all conversations appear to be self-directed towards him or her and his or her wants, needs, and interests? During the conversation, does his or her attention become increasingly distracted, and or do they wander when you begin to speak about something that is important to you? Do you notice any signs of addictions? Gambling, alcohol? Both the case in my relationship. Does he or she accept responsibility for his or her actions in the present and stories of the past? Most likely, no. It's always going to be someone else's fault why they broke up with the last person. That person is going to be crazy. That person is going to be delusional. That person is going to be jealous. But it was never anything that they did. These are the signs, and we just need to look at them clearly and carefully and not be blinded by the possibility that this is your true love of your life, because 9 times out of 10, it's not. All right, so now let me talk about this relationship that I had. We originally met at an Empire rap party, and this was around May 2016. It was at a lounge, some club, or it was a lounge. And I was minding my own business. Didn't even notice him. But he sent the drink over, and of course I felt obligated to go over and talk. So we talked for maybe about half an hour. He found out what I did, found out what he did. He found out that I, had my own online magazine, that I was an attorney, and, just normal conversation. And then after the half hour, 45 minutes or whatever, I said that I was going to go ahead, get ready to go home. And he begged me to stay so I could listen to him recite a poem. And I said, okay, I'll wait. So after the poem, I told him he did a great job, and he got ready to leave, and I got ready to leave, and he walked me out. And he asked for my Facebook info. He asked for my number, but I told him I was going out with someone else, which was the case. I was going out with someone else at the time, which happened to be another narcissist, the first narcissist that I was dating. I was not attracted to this guy at all. He was too cocky, too arrogant, and he was too loud. And he would begin all his poems with, "Pardon my appearance, I'm very handsome." But he was not physically attractive to me. He taunts himself as the greatest at everything. And he has a list of about 20 occupations on the bio page of his Facebook. You know how, you list that you're an accountant, you're a doctor, you're a journalist. He has literally about 20 or more occupations listed in the bio of his Facebook page. And he was just over the top, not attractive at all. So we became Facebook friends. He would tag me in his poems along with about 30 other women all the time. And I didn't think twice about it. He later inboxed me and basically told me he would be my best interview and he said I should interview him. So I scheduled it. I went ahead and did the interview for the magazine. Okay, that's fine. So we fast forward to January of 2017. He found out I had broken up with my ex, at that time, the first narcissist. He found out that I broke up with him. So he starts flirtatiously sending me, he commented under all my pics that I posted. He always had a comment, and it was always, a flirtatious comment, or he always pressed the wow button, when they have the smiley face, the like, the angry face, whatever. He always pressed the wow button. So, that was going to grab my attention. Eventually he asked me out. I was still reeling over the breakup with the first narcissist. That was the point where I was really, at my lowest and facing a mental nervous breakdown. So at that time I was just like, I just need to get out. I just need to do something to occupy my mind so I'm not thinking about this other guy, because he consumed my mind. So I agreed to just go ahead and go out. The first date we went to Bar Louie, and he was well dressed, gentleman. He stood up when I walked in. He pulled out my chair. When I sat down, he pushed the chair. We had a decent conversation. I still wasn't interested in him, but again, it was just nice being out and enjoying the company, and having adult company. The second date, which was just a couple days later, he suggested that we go out for comedy. And I said, okay, I'm thinking we're going to go to some, comedy club in Chicago. But he's like, oh no, I was talking about going to see Cat Williams. And I'm like, oh, okay. Cat Williams. I didn't think about that when you said comedy. Again, this is the over the top thing that draws you in. It's being charming and charismatic. So, I got there. I couldn't find a park. I was pissed because I couldn't find a park for 45 minutes. Finally found a park that was kind of far away. So he sends an Uber to pick me up from where I parked my car and take me to the UIC pavilion right in front. I'm like, oh, this guy is good. Perfect gentleman. Then the third date, which was probably just a couple days later or maybe a week later, we went to dinner at Bonefish Grill. He brought 3 yellow flowers. I forget what kind they were, but 3 yellow flowers to represent our third date. And then we went bowling. This was just the time of my life. And I'm starting to, get over the first guy. So we went on dates. I took him to Giordano's because that's his favorite pizza place, and Dave and Buster's. We celebrated there because he booked something. He's an actor, for those who are wondering what I'm talking about. So he booked something. And we had a great time. And we also, one weekend we spent in Milwaukee. We went to a Milwaukee Bucks playoff game. The next day we woke up. We went to see Fast and the Furious, or the Fate and the Furious, whatever, the 8th installment of the Fast and the Furious series. And then he got my nails done. We came back to Chicago. I unpacked, what I had or whatever. And then he wanted to see me again. So we met up again. He picked me up and we went to Hooters. So, constant contact, with me. And it was after that Hooters dinner, I believe, that he said at that time, and this was only maybe like 2 weeks into the relationship. No, I take that back. Maybe a month into the relationship, where he said that I'm going to be his wife. He already knew that from the first day he saw me, that I was going to be his wife. He was just waiting for the other guy to mess up. So throughout the courtship, we went to Bulls games, nice dinners, concerts, and they were pretty good seats, at the concerts. He sent flowers to my job all the time. I want to remind you, this is in the beginning. He sent flowers. He spent money on very lavish gifts and these thoughtful dates. But that was all part of the plan. So these are the warning signs that I ignored. Because in the beginning, it's love bombing. Like I said, they're doing the best that they can to sweep you off your feet. But that's a mask, and that mask can only stay on for so long. They can only put so much effort into that before their true selves begin to reveal and begin to show themselves. So I blocked him. I blocked him on social media, probably, 3 or 4 months into the relationship, because he was constantly making inappropriate comments under other women's pictures. Even during a live video he was recording, someone chimed in, a female chimed in, and I guess they were having a conversation on live, and he says to her, I guess she mentioned that her ex-husband lived in Chicago, because she's not in Chicago, she lives out of state, but her ex-husband lived in Chicago and loved Harold's Chicken or something, whatever. Anyway, he says, well, the problem there is that he's your ex, because if I was married to you, you would never be my ex. Totally inappropriate for someone who's in a relationship with another person. So, I called him on it, and he claimed that, he said that he would block her because that wasn't the only inappropriate comment he made under her picture. He used to make several of those types of comments. He would talk about how beautiful she is, or just things you don't want your significant other to be saying to another person, So he said that he would not block her, but unfriend her on Facebook and unfollow her on Instagram. And yeah, he did for maybe 2 days, and he was back at it again. So I just decided to block him because every time I would log on and see it, it would just turn my stomach, and it would make me angry. And I said, I'm not going to get myself angry. I'm not going to say anything. So I'm just going to block it so I don't see it. I don't know. That should have been a warning sign for me. But he he covered it. He said that this was his facade. This was who he was online. That was his online presence. That's not who he was in person. He had to do that for the career that he's in, be this loud person, an arrogant and cocky person, but that's not who he was in real life. That's what he said. But that's what he loved to do. He threw other women in the faces of the women that he's with, because he did it with his ex. He purposely took me to Fridays one time, knowing that she was going to be there. And they ran into each other. I didn't know she was there. I didn't know who she was. I had no idea what was going on. But they were, giving each other glances. I found this out after the fact. But he knew she was going to be there. So he took me there that same night on purpose, so he could run into her and show her that he was with someone else. He would post me on his page and still be in her inbox asking her to work things out with him. I have screenshots that she sent me. Timestamp the same time that he was supposed to be with me. He's still trying to get back, with her. Another thing about him is that he never really conversed. Everything was a poem recitation. And all his poems are not even original. I mean, if you go back on his page, the poems that he used to recite to me were poems he said 8 years ago, but he pretended like they were supposed to be written for me. But they're poems that he's already said and already written to, I don't know how many other women, but multiple other women before me. We went to San Francisco. That was my idea for Sweetest Day in 2017. But when I asked him to confirm his birthday for the flight information, he all of a sudden had to get off the phone. It was really quick. He had to get off the phone. And it was so weird how the conversation changed so quickly as soon as I asked for his birthday. That's because for 7 months during the time that we dated, I did not know his real age. He lied about his age. I didn't find out his real age until I found out his real name. Yes, I did not know his real name for 7 months. I was calling him and telling my family that his name was so-and-so. Let's just say, I don't know, John Doe. I was telling people that his name was John Doe because that was his stage name that he had on Facebook, that he goes by in all his social media. And he knew that this is the only name that I knew him by, because I called him by that. That's how I introduced him. But it's not his real name. I did not know his real name until his ex told me. He claimed he was in the process of, when I finally called him out on it, he claimed that he was in the process of getting his name changed legally. It's still not changed to this day. And then he had the nerve to say he was changing his birth certificate for the age because that's what actors do. So when I said, okay, so you can go back to being 10 years old, is it that easy? You could go down to the Department of Vital Statistics and you could change your age. It's just that easy. And according to him, yes, because all actors do that. They lie about their age. And I'm like, well, I'm supposed to be with you. Why don't I know your age? And this is not just like a year or two difference. This is like 6 years difference from what you're telling me. 6 years older than what you told me you were. So things began to change. I mean, he stopped sending flowers. I didn't see any flowers anymore. And those front row seats that we went to in the beginning of the relationship became nosebleed seats. All those nice hotels that we went to in the beginning of the relationship became Motel 6s. He claimed he wasn't getting paid for his commercials. We stopped going out as much. I was paying for things when we went out. He became distant. The text messages where he was sending all these poems and these long text messages every other minute of the day, it seemed, became 4 or 5 words. We would make plans for him to go to the movies or to come to my daughter's birthday party, and he just flaked out. He just didn't show up. He didn't call. He didn't say anything. He just didn't show. So those are signs, but why did I stay around? Simple. I mean, in the beginning, I was just down for my man. He said he wasn't getting paid on time. I said, that's okay. I knew what he was capable of doing because he did everything. Like I said in the beginning, he was doing all this phenomenal stuff in the beginning. So I knew he had the capability. So maybe it was just that he wasn't, getting paid on time. But he constantly reminded me that I did this in the beginning. I did this. I sent you flowers. I sent you balloons. I took you to these nice places. We had front row seats to this. I planned this. Yeah. But he wanted to hang it over my head. And I challenged him one time by saying, yeah, you did all that in the beginning, but this is now. This is the now. This is like 2 years later, or I'm sorry, a year later, a year and a half later, and nothing is, you've changed. Like, what are you doing now? So he also did a good job of lying and covering his tracks. He said that everybody, even though we weren't friends on social media, everyone knew who I was. Everyone knew his poems were about me, and everyone knew his books were about me. He would always guilt me by saying he was all in. That was his words, all in. And if it wasn't me, there was no one else for him. He says he's never done the things with me that he's done. He's never done things with me like he's never done things with others, I'm sorry, as he's done with me. And I was the person who showed him how to love again. He used to talk about how he was always bullied. Again, he's playing the victim. He's always bullied. He never got the girl. I gave him confidence. His flirting with other women, again, like I said, was a character he had to put on. It was his public persona. He wasn't that same person behind closed doors. He was a one-woman man. A bold-faced lie. Other women he's flirted with were pawns and bitches, his words. But I was his only love. And I have the video of him calling these other women he flirts with pawns and bitches. So this is what I found out after the breakup. And this was, some of the things that really shocked me to my core, because I couldn't believe, I mean, I consider myself a pretty intelligent person, but I couldn't believe that I just let these signs slide. So, like I said, we started dating in March of 2017. He began a full-on relationship with another woman. And this is only the one that I know about. I don't know if there's others, but this is the only one that I know about who reached out to me. So we began dating in March of 2017. He began this relationship with this woman in January of 2018. He proposed to me in April of 2018. But he was still in a relationship with the other woman. The other woman did not know about me because she thought we were broken up, because that's what he said to all his Facebook friends while I had him blocked. But just like me, she grew tired of his womanizing ways, and she broke up with him around September 2018. So she had been with him for about 9 months. And to get back at her for breaking up with him, he posted me on his Facebook page as his WCW. He has this obsession, by the way, of being somebody's man crush. He wants desperately to be someone's man crush. So he's always talking about being a WCW, him being someone's MCM. And, he's over 50 years old. So you wouldn't think that someone that age would be so obsessed with something so, I wouldn't say juvenile, because sometimes I do it, but it's not something that it's like a goal of mine to be someone's WCW. It's his goal to be someone's MCM. But anyway, he posted me as his WCW on his page. And so she saw it and she got in contact with me. And the info she had basically turned my world upside down. Everything she said was backed by receipts. She came with receipts, screenshots, videos, everything. And it all lined up. So he lied to me about being married in the beginning when we first got together. I just asked him, just in conversation. This is maybe our first or second date. I was like, so have you ever been married? He said, oh, yeah, I've been married, but she died in 2008 of cancer. And she supposedly half black and Puerto Rican or whatever. All of that was a lie. He's not married anymore, but his ex-wife is alive and well, and she's even on Facebook, and she's not black and Puerto Rican. I don't know where that came from, but that was a story that he gave me. He did do some pretty horrible things to her that I found out, but I'm not going to speak on her behalf. He also lied about his criminal background. He told me about a crime, and this was later when I had to probe him on it. He told me about a crime, but he said he never served time for it. He basically had to pay a fine and restitution. But what I didn't do was I looked, on the Illinois Department of Corrections website or whatever. After I found out his real name, I looked on the Illinois Department of Corrections, but didn't find anything. But recently something told me to look up his name in the federal inmate search. So I looked him up, and yeah, that's where I found it. So he has, a criminal background. I didn't know anything that it was that serious, that he actually did serve time, but that's what it is. I can't lie about it. I can't make it up. Anybody can look it up online. It's there. I don't create the federal inmate database. I have nothing to do with that. If you did the crime, your name is going to be there. So he lies about petty things like the clothes he wears. He loves to say that his clothes are more expensive than people's mortgages. They're actually from the thrift store. And this I learned from one of his exes, because one time he was doing a live video and he had the thrift store tag on his shirt, and she had to tell him to remove the tag. But this is what he does. He puts on this image like he's so great and he's so money, and it's all a lie. He writes books. He says that the last series of books he wrote were dedicated to me. One of them, the title of the book is a name that he called me. But I learned that he also called the other woman the same name. And we both have books where he's written on the inside cover dedicating those books to both of us. So one is dedicated to me, one is dedicated to her. But all along, I thought that it was just me. It was all a lie. The poems that he writes and that he recites or whatever on his social media could be about any woman that he's targeting. He would always say that they were for me. And he would always say, if you listen, you'll find specific things that, only you would know. Yeah, that's true. But then there were also other parts of the poem that had nothing to do with me, because they had something to do with other women. He would use part of the poem to talk about me and use part of the poem to talk about another woman or other women. But he would always be able to fall back on that, you hear that thing, that applies to you, that can only apply to you. Yeah, but what about the rest of it? Doesn't apply to me at all, because it applies to other women. He took all of his women to the same spots, restaurants, hotels. Nothing was original. And even in his other relationship, the woman said he was constantly being inappropriate with other women, like I said before. Okay. The night he proposed, I said he proposed to me in April. The night before he proposed, I found out he was making plans to be with his girlfriend the day after. So he's texting her the day before he proposed. He proposes the next day, and then he hangs out with his girlfriend the day after. He posted that he was engaged on Facebook, but to keep his cover, he later told his friends on Facebook that it was all a joke to see how many likes he can get. Again, I was not friends with him on Facebook at this time, so I had no idea what he was posting. And he likes to say that his page is public, but he'll make certain posts only for his friends or only for certain people. So beware of that, because sometimes he loves to say that everything is public when it's not. And I called him on that, because you can easily see what Facebook posts are only for friends or, public, or only for certain people if you know the icons. So I called him out on that a few times. And of course he got pissed and got upset because I actually noticed that he was lying to me. So, and I also said that we went to San Francisco. Okay. So he was in an episode of a Chicago show. And he invited me and my two daughters over to look at the episode with him, his mother, and his brother. He lives with them. But I found out that right before we came over, he had his girlfriend come over and actually try to have sex with her in the car outside of his house. This was right before we came over. And this was right before, the day before we went to San Francisco. And, and he didn't post me when we went on the San Francisco trip. He said that he didn't want to make us public because he thought that it would make his ex, reappear or whatever, or get mad and start inboxing me if she saw us together. But that wasn't the case. It was that he was with this other woman and he didn't want to blow his cover. He actually had his girlfriend look up the flights. I found out, and that was because he told her that he was going to San Francisco to shoot a pilot or some other lie. But he actually had her to look up the flights that we were going on the trip for. Everything I did, we did together, he just didn't post me. He didn't make it known to people that we were together. I took him to see D.L. Hughley when D.L. Hughley came to town at the Chicago Improv. He took pictures with D.L. Hughley, by the way. I paid for the meet and greet. But he never mentioned that he was with me. He would always use his brother as a cover and say, I'm with my brother, or I went with my brother. Anytime he's with another woman and he doesn't want other women to know, he'll use his brother as a pawn. On my birthday last year, we had got into an argument about something on Valentine's Day. My birthday is a week after Valentine's Day. We were supposed to go to San Francisco around my birthday, which again is in February. We didn't end up going to San Francisco until April. But okay, so for my birthday, we didn't go because he just didn't talk to me for like 2 weeks after Valentine's Day. Granted, like I said, we were into an argument, but on my birthday, especially after I put so much effort into his birthday and celebrating his birthday and spending money for his birthday, which is in December, he didn't even bother to call. He didn't bother to text. He didn't bother to email, nothing. And I'm supposed to be his woman. What he did do on my birthday, and I have the screenshot from the other woman, what he did do is post her as his WCW. Again, this fascination he has with these women crushes and these men crushes. He posted her as his WCW on my birthday. I'm home. I'm upset. I'm crying because I don't understand why my boyfriend is not contacting me on my birthday. I don't care what kind of argument we had. You call, you can at least text. I mean, I would have just accepted the text, but I didn't get that. I didn't get anything for another week. So he waited until a week after my birthday to even contact me. Okay, here's another thing. People know that my best friend, some people know that my best friend died in 2017. And after she died, my dad died about 2 weeks later. So while I'm at the funeral home making arrangements for my dad, I get a call from one of his exes telling me about a situation she just had with him. And, I'm not in the right state of mind. I'm just like, oh, what is it now? So she tells me how he came over saying that he wanted to make amends with her. He didn't want to be on bad terms with her. So he came over, took her to a store to get some drinks or whatever. And they sat in the car. And while she thinks he's still going to be talking about, just squashing the beef that they had, he forces himself on her. I mean, forcefully. I'm not going to get graphic, but he forced himself on her. And at the time, like I said, I'm at the funeral home. Like my dad is, I'm trying to make arrangements for my dad who had just died the day before. So my head is in a whirlwind. I'm like, I really can't deal with this now. I told him about it. And of course he explained it away. But then again, it's at a moment when I'm vulnerable because, hey, I just lost my best friend. 2 weeks later, I lose my dad. I need somebody, somebody's shoulder to lean on. So I just kind of just brushed it off. And I know I shouldn't have. But this is what he is capable of doing. He thinks women are simply objects. And he's even said on set to another young actor, and this is what I learned from his ex, that every young man is entitled to have a side chick. This is what he told another young man who was married. And it was during that conversation when she told me about him forcing himself on her, that's when I found out his real age and his real name. And when I asked him to produce his ID so I can see his name and his age, he would not show me. He went off and said how I don't trust him, how I'm listening to another woman I don't know anything about. How could I be so naive? And he just refused to show me his ID. Okay, so I also last year, my mom celebrated a pretty big birthday. So I rented a house, a mansion. I rented a mansion for my mom for her birthday. He was there and he posted on Facebook to everybody that he was there with his brother and a few friends. He took pictures of the house because it was something to show. He was definitely going to get some likes, from this house. So he had to post pictures from the house, but he couldn't let people know that he was there with me. Instead, he lied and told people that it was him and his brother and a few friends who rented out the house. Never mind the fact that it was me. It was my money that paid for everything. No, it was all him. And he had the nerve to say that he was thinking about buying the house. Right. But if people saw the car that he was driving, I don't know how that car will look in front of the house that we were in. But anyway, that's I divert from what I'm saying. Okay. And then lastly, he took me to a Fridays, and this is where I go back to what I said earlier. And this is when he met the other woman there because he knew she would be there. So while we were there, she showed up the whole time. Like I said, I didn't know she was there. A couple days later, he warned me that she would probably reach out to me because she was upset seeing him there with me. And that she was probably going to tell me a whole bunch of lies because she was blowing up his phone after the encounter that they had. So she sent me an inbox in Facebook. She gave me the whole breakdown about his womanizing behavior, how he lies incessantly, how he was still trying to work things out, even when he was starting a relationship with me. And he told me basically that she was someone he was going out with, but was never serious with her. Basically, just hooking up. And he just needed someone to accompany him to the events that he was going to. So he stayed, with her. And I believed him. But after I discovered who he truly was, those lies had no effect on me. And I found out that he was in contact with her the whole day that we were going to go to Fridays. He knew she was going to be there because she told him she was going to be there. He wanted to antagonize her. She told me at one point during the night, he looked over at her and laughed at her as if to say, I don't need you anymore. I have someone else. Narcissists are so twisted that they get enjoyment from seeing a reaction from people. They get the most enjoyment from upsetting people. They will go to any lengths to get a reaction from you. They'll purposely make you upset to the point where even you can feel your blood pressure rise. They can make you cry. They don't care. Inside, they're laughing because this is exactly what they want. This is exactly what they need to feed their ego. So, in summary, I just want to say that he was a walking contradiction. If anyone really ever paid attention to his posts, they can see it. 1 minute, I'm his fiance. The next minute, I'm a joke. 1 minute, we're broken up. The next, I'm his WCW. 1 minute, a poem is about me. The next, he's begging for a chance with someone else. People do break up for small periods of time, yes. But if 1 minute I'm your girlfriend and the next you're in a relationship with a fellow actress, then I'm your fiance again, then that's a joke. Then I'm your WCW, it all becomes convoluted and it all becomes confusing. His whole life is fraudulent. And I'm not saying that because he's my ex. I'm saying it because it is the truth. I mean, from his name to his age, to his marital status, to his criminal background, everything is a fraud. But he's very persuasive and he can charm anyone if they're not on their P's and Q's. And he prides himself on that. He preys on women. He takes pictures with as many women as he can, posts them on Facebook, stores them in his phone. He studies women's posts on Facebook, and that's how he decides who he wants to target. Single attractive women that are intelligent and have some level of success. He figures out what he can benefit from the relationship. Either it's status, money, an extremely attractive woman to flaunt. For me, I believe he thought he could use my connections to get ahead, you know, in entertainment for the things that I do for the magazine. He was using me for my connections. And also to have him featured, you know, in the magazine for exposure. And again, there's evidence of who he is online. Government websites. These are things that I don't have anything to do. These are things that I don't create. I could never create. But he's a convict. So what makes him different from any other cheater? We all know men cheat. We all know women cheat. There's cheaters in relationships. They're not all narcissists, though. So what's the difference between a cheater and a narcissist? Cheaters lie, but they feel remorse and they know what they're doing is wrong. Narcissists are extremely charming. He would constantly say that his actions were part of his charm. That was another phrase that he constantly used. Part of his charm. Cheaters are not so charming. Narcissists are superficial. Anyone who has to constantly go on social media to drop name brands and say they're very handsome all the time and are so self-absorbed are superficial. Thus, they're more of a narcissist than they are just a cheater, an asshole cheater. They're victims. They're never wrong. If they admit to any wrong, it's a sarcastic admission. They're habitual liars. This whole man's life is a lie. And I'm really not exaggerating. Most of his lies overlap and create contradiction, but unless a person is really paying attention, the lies will just fly over their heads. Narcissists love public attention. He wants attention from any and everyone who will provide it, but mainly from women. That's why he posts love poems and erotic poems and tags dozens of women in his videos. It's to get attention. One woman will never be enough for him, even though he likes to flaunt and say that he's a one-woman man, that he's very romantic, that he goes out of his way to make sure dates are phenomenal. Yes, he does in the beginning. He does. He's going to do it again in the beginning. But he can only keep up that facade for so long before he begins to revert back to the true narcissist that he is. But he'll get bored with one woman. Not only does he need the social attention, he prides himself on getting as many women as he can in bed. So I still ask myself, how in God's name did I fall for this guy? I got with him again only to get over another narcissistic relationship. So I was aware of the signs. The first one had me gone. This one, not so much, because I recognize the signs, but for some reason, I still tried to give the relationship a chance. These people are charismatic and intoxicating. They'll show you things and do things for you that probably no man has ever done. But you have to be careful. You have to watch out for those signs, especially the love bombing when they move super fast in the beginning. And they show you things that you never would have thought you would have ever seen in a relationship. That phrase, if it's too good to be true, it probably is so dead on in this situation. Everything he did was too good to be true. And I should have been aware of that in the beginning. Talking about it helps relieve some of the disappointment that I have in myself. So that's why I do these videos. And I do these videos also because there are so many narcissists in this world, especially men, that I would hate to see another woman go through the things that I've gone through. The story I just told is not fabricated in any way. Everything I've just said can be backed. I have receipts for everything I just said. Nothing has been manipulated. Nothing has been fabricated. Nothing has been exaggerated. Everything, I have foolproof evidence to back it up. I would not come online and talk about anyone without having the proof to back it up. And once again, going online to government websites, I have no control over that. If your name is there, it's there for a reason. So, again, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm happy to share my story I was humiliated about it at first, but this is sort of liberating for me. You'll never feel the emotional drain or the emotional distress that you feel when you're in a relationship with a narcissist. So I'm hoping to help as many people as I can. If you guys have any questions, feel free to hit the inbox. Let me know. And I will talk to you guys again later. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.